The old house stood on a hill overlooking a patchwork of fields. It had been there for generations, a silent witness to the changing seasons and the passage of time. The house had character, with its weathered stones and ivy-covered walls telling stories of the past to anyone who cared to listen. But there was something else, something darker, lurking beneath its surface. It was a fixer-upper for sure, but Sarah and Mark saw potential. They envisioned a place where they could build their future, a sanctuary away from the hustle and bustle of city life. The house, though in need of repair, had a charm that was hard to resist. They could already see the garden they would plant, the rooms they would fill with laughter and love. Yet there was an eerie silence that seemed to echo through the halls, a silence that felt almost watchful. They dreamed of restoring it, making it their own. Every creaky floorboard and cracked window seemed to whisper promises of what could be. They spent hours discussing their plans, sketching out ideas, and imagining the life they would build together in this old house. It was more than just a project. It was a dream they were determined to make a reality. But as they talked, the house seemed to listen, its shadows deepening with each passing day. The countryside was quiet, a welcome change from the city. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of wildflowers and the sound of birdsong. It was a place where time seemed to slow down, where they could breathe and find peace. The rolling fields and distant woods offered a sense of freedom and tranquility they had longed for. But at night the woods seemed to close in, the darkness pressing against the windows like a living thing. They felt a sense of peace as they moved their belongings into the house. Each box unpacked, each piece of furniture placed, brought them closer to making the house their home. They laughed as they arranged their things, feeling a sense of accomplishment and joy. It was the beginning of a new chapter, filled with hope and excitement. But as the sun set, the house seemed to come alive, its walls whispering secrets they couldn't quite hear. The first few nights were bliss. They slept soundly in the quiet darkness, the only sounds being the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant call of an owl. It was a stark contrast to the noise and chaos of the city. They woke up each morning feeling refreshed and ready to tackle the day's challenges. But soon the nights grew colder, the darkness more oppressive, and the once comforting silence became a source of dread. The house felt like it was theirs, a fresh start. They spent their days exploring the countryside, meeting their new neighbors, and slowly but surely making the house their own. It was a place where they could be themselves, where they could create new memories and build a life together. But the more they settled in, the more they felt the house watching them, its presence growing stronger with each passing day. They began work on the renovations, eager to bring their vision to life. They rolled up their sleeves and got to work, each task bringing them closer to their dream. It was hard work, but they didn't mind. They were building something together, something that would last. But as they tore down walls and uncovered hidden spaces, they found things that made their blood run cold, old forgotten things that seemed to whisper of past horrors. Mark began fixing the leaky roof while Sarah stripped wallpaper in the living room. They worked side by side, supporting each other and sharing the load. Each day brought new challenges, but also new rewards. They could see the progress they were making, and it filled them with pride. But with each stroke of the brush, each nail hammered in, the house seemed to resist, its very structure groaning in protest. They were happy, excited for their future in their new home. They talked about the family they would raise, the friends they would invite over, and the countless memories they would create. It was a time of hope and anticipation, a time when anything seemed possible. But beneath their joy, a sense of unease began to grow, a feeling that they were not alone. But the peace didn't last. As they settled into their new life, they began to notice things they hadn't seen before. Strange noises in the night, shadows that seemed to move on their own, and an unsettling feeling that they couldn't quite shake. The house, it seemed, had secrets of its own, secrets that were slowly, inexorably coming to light. The first sign that something was wrong was a sound, a whisper, faint and indistinct late at night. Sarah heard it first, a rustling near the bedroom door. She dismissed it as the floorboards settling. Old houses creaked and groaned. It was to be expected. Mark, however, slept soundly through it. He was a heavy sleeper, often oblivious to the world once he drifted off. Sarah, on the other hand, was a light sleeper. The slightest noise could rouse her from slumber. The whispers continued each night, growing bolder, closer. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. One evening as they were eating dinner, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. They rushed to investigate, hearts pounding. A large ornate portrait that had been hanging in the hallway lay shattered on the floor. The frame was broken, the glass scattered. Neither Sarah nor Mark had touched it. The painting was old, depicting a stern-looking family in front of the house. They had found it in the attic and decided to hang it up. Now it was ruined. Mark tried to explain it away as a faulty hook, but Sarah wasn't convinced. The feeling of unease intensified. Something was wrong in the house, something unexplainable. Their unsettling experiences prompted Sarah to research the history of the house. She went to the local library, poring over old newspapers and historical records. She discovered that the house had a dark past. A family had lived and died within its walls generations ago, their story shrouded in rumors of tragedy and isolation. The family, the Bakers, had been reclusive and eccentric. The father, a stern and imposing figure, had kept his wife and children practically imprisoned within the house. Local gossip whispered of abuse and madness. Then one day the entire family disappeared without a trace. The house had stood empty ever since, until Sarah and Mark bought it. Driven by a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity, Mark and Sarah decided to explore the basement. They had heard stories about the old house, tales of strange noises and unexplained occurrences that seemed to originate from below. Despite their apprehension, they felt compelled to uncover the truth. The basement door creaked open, revealing a set of rickety stairs that descended into darkness. With each step, the air grew colder and the sense of foreboding intensified. The basement was dark and damp, the air thick with the smell of mildew. The walls were lined with old crumbling bricks, and the floor was uneven, covered in a thin layer of dust. The only light came from the dim glow of their flashlight, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. The atmosphere was suffocating, as if the basement itself was alive, watching their every move. Cobwebs hung from the low ceiling, and the floor was littered with debris. Broken furniture, old newspapers, and forgotten relics of the past were scattered around, adding to the sense of decay. As they ventured deeper, the sound of their footsteps echoed, amplifying the silence that surrounded them. It was as if time had stood still in this forgotten place. They found a loose stone in the wall, revealing a small hidden room. The stone shifted with a grating sound, and a narrow passageway appeared. Mark and Sarah exchanged a nervous glance before squeezing through the opening. The hidden room was even darker than the basement, and the air was thick with dust. It felt like stepping into another world, one that had been sealed away for decades. Inside they discovered a child's diary, filled with disturbing drawings and incoherent ramblings about a watcher and things that go bump in the night. The pages were yellowed with age, and the handwriting was shaky, as if written in a state of fear. The drawings depicted shadowy figures and monstrous creatures, haunting images that sent chills down their spines. It was clear that the child had been terrified, but of what? They could only guess. The diary belonged to one of the Baker children, a young girl named Emily. Her name was scrawled on the inside cover, along with a date from over 50 years ago. As they read through the entries, they learned about Emily's life, her fears, and the strange occurrences that plagued her family. It was a glimpse into a past filled with mystery and dread, a story that had been buried along with the hidden room. Alongside the diary were strange artifacts, dolls with button eyes and painted-on smiles. These dolls were eerily lifelike, their expressions frozen in perpetual grins. They seemed to watch Mark and Sarah with unblinking eyes, adding to the unsettling atmosphere. Each doll was unique, yet they all shared the same haunting quality, as if they held secrets of their own, and small, crudely made figurines carved from bone. These figurines were primitive, yet they exuded a sense of malevolence. Some were shaped like animals, others like twisted human forms. It was clear that they had been crafted with care, but for what purpose they could only speculate. The combination of the diary, the dolls, and the figurines painted a picture of a dark and troubled past. The room felt heavy, oppressive. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, as if the walls themselves held memories of fear and sorrow. Mark and Sarah could feel the weight of the past pressing down on them, a palpable sense of dread that made it hard to breathe. It was as if the room was alive, feeding off their fear. It was a place of secrets, of fear, a hidden corner of the world where the past refused to be forgotten. As they stood in the darkness, surrounded by the remnants of a forgotten life, they realized that some mysteries are better left undiscovered. The hidden room had revealed its secrets, but at a cost. The fear that had driven them to explore now threatened to consume them, leaving them with more questions than answers. Following the discovery of the hidden room, activity in the house escalated. It started with small, almost imperceptible changes. The air felt heavier, and there was a constant sense of being watched. The family tried to ignore it at first, attributing the sensations to their imagination, but soon the occurrences became too frequent and too tangible to dismiss. Doors slammed shut on their own. It wasn't just a single door, but multiple doors throughout the house, as if an unseen force was making its presence known. The sound echoed through the halls, startling everyone. It was as if the house itself was alive, reacting to their every move. Footsteps echoed in the hallway when no one was there. The sound was unmistakable, heavy and deliberate, as if someone was pacing back and forth. The family would gather in the living room, listening in silence, their hearts pounding in their chests. They checked the hallway repeatedly, but it was always empty. One night, Mark swore he saw a shadowy figure lurking at the edge of the woods behind the house. He had gone outside to investigate a strange noise and saw it standing there just beyond the tree line. The figure was tall and dark, with no discernible features. It seemed to be watching him, and a chill ran down his spine. It vanished when he blinked. One moment it was there, and the next it was gone, as if it had never existed. Mark stood there staring into the darkness, trying to make sense of what he had seen. He knew it wasn't his imagination, but he had no way to prove it. They installed security cameras, hoping to capture evidence of what was happening. The cameras were placed strategically around the house, covering every angle. The family felt a bit more secure, thinking that they would finally get some answers. They monitored the footage closely, waiting for something to happen. The footage revealed chilling anomalies. Strange lights flickered in the rooms and shadows moved across the walls. There were moments when the cameras would glitch, showing distorted images that sent shivers down their spines. It was clear that something was there, something that didn't want to be seen. Objects moved on their own, seemingly pushed by an unseen hand. Books fell off shelves, chairs slid across the floor, and doors opened and closed without anyone touching them. The family watched in horror as their home became a playground for the supernatural. A chair in the living room rocked back and forth as if someone was sitting in it. The motion was slow and steady, almost soothing, but it was also deeply unsettling. The family would sit and watch, unable to look away, feeling a mix of fear and fascination. And then there was the shadow figure again, a fleeting glimpse of darkness caught on camera moving across the backyard. The figure was more distinct this time, its movements deliberate and purposeful. The family watched the footage over and over, trying to understand what they were seeing. The house was haunted. There was no other explanation. The family had tried to rationalize the events, to find a logical reason for what was happening, but there was none. They were living in a haunted house and they had to accept that reality. The presence had made itself known, and there was no escaping it.